My husband and I bought and have been renovating an old, rundown craftsman that was built in 1960. I lived in a legit haunted house when I was a teenager, so I know what that's like. And at first, I didn't have any negative feelings in the house. I was often alone at the house doing renovations while my husband was at work. After being at the house for a little less than a year, I got pregnant. While I was pregnant, I had a few terror instances in which I awoke and saw a pale little boy with dark circles under his eyes who looked to be about 7 or 8 years old standing in the corner. The first time he just stood there for several seconds after I woke and then he disappeared. The next couple of times it happened, he began walking towards me and then disappeared just before he got to me. I would scream bloody murder each time, and even though I was wide awake and screaming, the image did not immediately disappear and stayed with me for several seconds. I remember thinking each time, this is it, it's finally happening, it's really real. Somehow, I would fall back asleep on each of those nights fairly quickly. After my daughter was born, she slept in a crib in our room for several months. I remember having one night terror of that little boy when she was in the room, and amazingly, my screaming didn't wake her. When my daughter was a little older and able to sit up at around 6 months old, she began having some odd behaviors. She would be playing and then just stop and look up in the corner of the ceiling for a long time. I would look up where she was looking, thinking she was seeing a shadow or something, but there was absolutely nothing there. She also did that a few times looking at a different corner in the house. She eventually outgrew the behavior by the time she was 2, and our second daughter never did any of that. My husband and I joke around about the little boy now and again, especially when anything weird happens. Recently, a toy scooter started rolling in the living room for a few feet and then stopped. My husband explained it by off-level floors, but it's not done that before or since. I've also heard bumps and scratching in the walls behind our headboard at night, which again my husband chalked up to a mouse, but we never did catch one of the traps. On many occasions, I've seen dark, shadowy movement in the corner of my eyes in our room, which is directly across from the living room, and you can see into it from the couch. So, maybe it's just old house stuff like my husband says, or maybe there's a little ghost boy living with us. Hello everyone. This experience occurred in February of this year, so my memory is pretty clear in regards to detail. This past year was my senior year of college, and I was thrilled to be living with an alumna of my sorority who I am very close with. We'll call her Abby for clarity's sake. Abby and I weren't actually supposed to live in the apartment we ended up in. We were originally going to be living in a townhouse with 2 other girls, but they started so much drama a month before we were supposed to move in that we had to contact our landlord to find a different place within their company to live. Thankfully, we found a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom basement apartment in a quiet area off campus. The first month was fine and without incident, but as the days went by, some strange things began to happen in the apartment. One morning, Abby woke up to a kitchen cabinet open. She wasn't that concerned about it, and figured that I had just forgotten to shut it the night before. The next morning, a different cabinet was open, and once again she shrugged it off. However, I went home one weekend and she woke up to find every cabinet in the kitchen wide open and the sink running. Needless to say, Abby was scared and spent the night at her boyfriend's. 2 weeks later, we were watching TV and heard the bathroom door close. I tried to calm Abby down by saying that the fan we kept in the bathroom blew it closed. However, when we went to bed, we thought we could hear something walking around in our living room. There's no way someone broke into our apartment and hid the whole day only to come out at night and screw around with us. I was home the whole day, and Abby was home from 11 in the morning on. That incident took place shortly before Christmas break, and all was calm in the apartment until February. Abby had gone home for the weekend, and I was home alone, relaxing on the couch and doing homework. It was pretty late at night, so I turned on the TV for background noise and curled up on the couch to sleep. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning to see Abby walking through the front door, smiling but not saying anything. I blinked, still groggy from sleep, and asked if she was okay. She just looked at me and proceeded to take off her shoes and walk into the kitchen. Something about her didn't seem right. Like this girl looked like Abby and walked like her, but it wasn't her. I asked her again if she was okay, because it was so early in the morning for her to be coming home. Abby looked at me, smiled, and began washing something in the sink. Something inside me felt a profound sense of dread, like I was in actual danger and I needed to get away. As quickly as possible, I went to my room and locked my door. I didn't say another word because it felt like if I did acknowledge her, it gave her more strength. I know that doesn't make much sense, but that was my instinct. I curled up beneath my blankets and stared at my bedroom door, almost waiting for her to kick it in. My eyes felt heavy, and the tapping was almost like a metronome, enticing me to sleep. As I drifted back to sleep, the tap seemed to slow down and trickle. The morning after, I was exhausted. It felt like I had taken 20 Advil PM to help me sleep, but I remembered everything that happened last night. Cautiously, I left my room and saw that Abby's bed hadn't been disturbed or slept in. I went to the living room and her shoes and purse weren't there. A cold feeling crept into my spine as I sent her a text asking if she had come home that night. She responded that no, she hadn't and wouldn't be coming home for another 2 days. But I checked the sink and the bowl that Abby had been washing had been cleaned and put away. I firmly believe I was not dreaming or hallucinating, and I know that this wasn't some elaborate prank by Abby, because she would never do something like that. I firmly believe something took the shape of Abby that night, and that its intentions were not good. There were a few other experiences in that apartment, but nothing so dramatic as to what I went through that night. I'm sorry if this post isn't very exciting or dramatic, but I thought it was worth sharing to get everyone's thoughts on it. Was this a doppelganger?